Hello, and welcome to the Say It Out Loud podcast. I am your host, Christine Daynard, and the goal of this podcast is to encourage you to live your best and most authentic life by digging deeper and finding connection through vulnerability. I believe we have been taught that vulnerability is a weakness, when in fact it is our superpower. In this space, I will share personal stories and conversations with others so you can be empowered by their strength and inspired to take action in your own life. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get started. Okay, hey, welcome back to the show. I am so glad that you're here, and I'm excited because I'm sitting in my kitchen studio with a lovely guest who came all the way to Wellesley, Wendy Wellesley, to visit me today. We're sitting around Sunshine Island, and we're about to have a conversation of whatever comes, and I'm so blessed to be here with Jennifer Heard. I really love Jen. I think she's such a wonderful and beautiful human, and today, I'm sure little parts of her story are going to come through and we're going to talk about whatever. And as you know from listening to this podcast, you know that we have real and heartfelt conversations here. And we talk about things and we say them out loud because it helps us release them. And it also helps others feel a little less alone. So that's what we're going to do today. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here. I love this green. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I know. I thought, you know what? Christine appreciates color. I'm putting this on.
I really love color. You are not wrong about that. Well, thank you for making the drive all the way out here to Wendy Wellesley to see me.
No problem.
And would you mind starting and just by sharing with our listeners a little bit about who Jen is?
Sure. I'm a single mom to a special needs young man. He's 26 now. I work full time in the area of finance, but my part-time side hustles are I make jewelry with beaded bracelets, crystals, pendants. I do wire wrapping, earrings, all kinds of fun stuff, and that's where the joy comes for me. And I'm also about to be a 2-time published author. I'm about to release the second co-author project called Honest as a Mother out there into the world. I think it's coming out Mother's Day, I believe. There's a ebook. They're releasing the ebook first. I believe it's Mother's Day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Those are all really great things because I think, sometimes we feel like we have to be just one thing.
Yeah.
And I love how you are gathering all of these different experiences for yourself.
Yeah.
Just so you mentioned that, you're like your day job is in finance,
Yeah.
but that what really brings you joy is this making of jewelry. So I'm just curious, like, how did that get started for you? Where did that come from?
It's funny. I had gone through in 2021 a very down period, just really, really dark, really down. And I just started seeking out things, like to make me feel better. And for somehow or another, I stumbled upon crystals. I've always liked pretty stones and shiny rocks and things like that. But I started doing a little bit more studying of what they were all about. And I had some beaded bracelets myself. And one day I just thought I could probably make my own. So I just kind of started making my own. And then a friend of mine, she was like, "Oh, I really like that. Can you make me one?" So I started making some for her and then her whole family. And then from there I'm going, I wonder if I could sell this stuff. So I signed up for a market and I started doing some markets and making more things. And, I take classes to learn other techniques and things like that. And yeah, it just kind of went from there. And, I like to learn about the different qualities of crystals and things like that. Some people buy them because they're pretty, and that's great. I always feel it's like if you're drawn to something, it's because it's what you need in that moment. So when I first started exploring crystals and things like that, it was always pink, the pink ones, which is your heart chakra. And I needed heart things. I needed to feel, love for myself at that time. So, I think you're drawn to, if you like it, there's a reason. Whether you want to explore it or not, that's up to you. But, and I can certainly help people if they're looking for something specific. I can, I'll research it if I don't already know and go, okay, well, you need this, or, and I enjoy doing that. If somebody's really saying, I'm really sad and depressed and I don't know what to do about it, and I'll like lepidolite's the one for you. It's good for anxiety. It's good for depression. They say that there's lithium right in it. It's right. So, and lithium they use it for
like a battery.
Antidepressant. Yeah. Right.
That's what I think of. Lithium battery.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just different things like that. So
interesting.
I find it very interesting.
Well, and like crystals or rocks are from the earth.
Exactly.
And, in our sort of North American culture, we don't maybe give credit enough to like what we get from the earth, right? We kind of abuse it instead of, connect with it.
Yeah.
But what a great, like, I find that I'm not a person who super leans into crystals all the time, but I can totally see the value and their benefit and how it's a piece of earth. Yes. That is coming that we're using to connect with. And I'm just going to close the door because I don't know if you heard that.
Hammering something.
I really hope it doesn't continue because there was someone yesterday. They were literally drilling holes back there, and I was supposed to record a video for something, and I was like, "It's not happening today." No. Okay, so one second. Next thing you know, Jen and I are climbing into the van, and I'll be like attaching microphones. Hey man, you never know what's going to happen, right? I'm so willing to roll with the punches on whatever comes our way. Yeah. It's just the way it happens sometimes. Yeah. So listeners, I've closed the door. We're going to do our best, but there is somebody in my backyard who yesterday was drilling holes, I think. And today there's been we just heard a bang. So if it keeps going, well, we'll see what happens. We'll just hope that it doesn't. So yeah, but I was saying that I love that, cause we can connect. We can reroute ourselves, reconnect and ground ourselves through the energy of the earth. And that's like an extension of the earth, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
And it's fascinating that this stuff, like you look at some of them and you go like, how did that come from the earth? Like, how did the earth do that? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's quite,
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I just realized my son's coming home at 3:00 and I did not warn him that we were doing a podcast interview. So he's usually pretty good. He's probably just going to pick up his things and go to the basement. So we're going to cross our fingers on that too. It's funny. It's like, there's all these little fun interruptions we're getting already. Oh, we just got started.
We did.
I think so many of us went through that period of time and needing to somehow reconnect with us, right? Like it brought up for us things.
Yeah.
And we realized that all of those sort of like material things in our lives were not as important as we maybe give them credit for.
Yeah.
And pause one sec. Jackson, do you need water?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you just come and pour your water? I'm going to hit this up. Okay, so we've had a couple little hiccups here. First, we had the driller in the backyard. And then I forgot to warn my son that I was in a podcast interview this afternoon. And so therefore, he didn't know and needed to come home and make a snack. And so we've had a couple interruptions and we actually kind of forget where we left off a little bit. So we're just this is how we roll around here. Yeah. We're just going to pick it up. I think we were just talking about how it's really neat how crystals and rocks are a part of the earth and that this is very grounding and connecting. And so like in itself, it wasn't just that you were drawn to make this jewelry. You were drawn to make jewelry through crystals and these things that were healing. Yeah. And that's really beautiful. And now it's continued to carry on. So now it's been like 3 years.
Yeah. I still make them. I still go to markets and I'm very much sort of an introverted sort of person, but I find that, something comes out at markets. Like I really enjoy doing them. I can chat with people, especially if they're interested in what crystals can do and all the rest. I can just chat all day. I'm usually exhausted by the time I get home and then I need quiet time. But I find it just really energizes me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and too, you're talking about something you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
right? So it's like when we have to talk about things that we're not excited about, that would be additionally draining, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So it would
For
revive you during that time. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And so you also mentioned that you've been one part of a couple of co-author projects. So tell us a little bit, what was the first one and what sort of inspired you to take part?
The first one was Body Bliss, the very first volume of the Body Bliss series of 3 books now. That came about right around the same time I was starting to make the crystals and jewelry. I had done a seminar with Andrea through my work, and I started following her, and I just really liked the messages, her messaging about your body and all of this sort of stuff. I was teaching myself how to get out of my dark place by doing things like journaling. I had a page that I said for a month I'm going to write down things that I like about myself every morning. One thing I like about myself, one affirmation, and one thing I'm grateful for. For 30 days, I'm going to do that, right? And it was amazing how quickly that started to turn my mindset around. When you start thinking about the gratitude, grateful things you're grateful for, and even just the things you like about yourself. And it wasn't easy. It was not easy to find, things some days that you liked about yourself. It was a challenge, right?
Yeah.
But so I just started doing that, and then I was following Andrea, and she posted that she was going to do this book, and I went, I want to do that. So I signed up for it before I gave myself time to really think about it, overthink it, or convince myself that I didn't belong in that place or whatever. And just wrote the chapter all about body acceptance, and it's a journey, and it's a
It sure is. Well, because there's so much noise out there about like how we're supposed to be and how our body is supposed to look, and that we constantly try to like contour ourselves or like force ourselves into this box of like what we think we're supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And we're all pretty messed up in it, right? It's like, and we are constantly marketed to about different products that we need to like lose weight or tighten up or make us look younger.
Yeah. If you're not trying hard enough, and people who say it's, it's just simple. It's calories in, calories out. No, it's not. It's not. Coming from, I went through a period, I trained to do a powerlifting competition, and I was training 6 days a week, anywhere from an hour to 2 hours every day. Never lost a pound. So I'm sorry. It's not about calories in, calories out. In all honesty, I probably wasn't eating enough for what I was working out as, but because you're programmed to go, oh my God, like I can't be eating 2,000 calories,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I can't eat that much food. That's far too much food.
Yeah.
Because we're just programmed to think we got to eat these little bitty portions, and if you fail, that's your fault. You're not trying hard enough. If that product didn't work for you, you've done it wrong. And it's because the product probably isn't good enough itself. It's the product that's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, and the whole message behind why you need the product in the first place.
First place. You're not good enough because you've got whatever, a bum, boobs,
not a flat stomach or like a little like chicken arm or whatever.
My arms wave when I'm waving. Whatever.
But all those things. And too, what I love about the Body Bliss book series and about what Andrea is doing and that you were a part of it, it's like, it's all about, and similar to what we do here in this podcast, it's like, it's all about sharing stories. And when we share stories, we release them from our bodies, right? Yeah. We make it more normal that we're able to share, and we help other people feel less alone, right? Yeah. Like similar to what this podcast is all about, but also that we're all so different. Like we're literally, and I use this phrase a lot, or this idea a lot, that we're built like snowflakes, right? Like no two snowflakes are the same. No, the composition isn't the same. Like there's different things that impact to make that snowflake look different and fall differently, and so, and we're similar to that in that we are all built uniquely and individually, and we all have different bone structure and like fat structure and like all these different things,
genetic, whatever,
right?
Whatever you want to call it.
And so like there's such an idea out there that we have to be a certain thing instead of just taking care of ourselves. Like imagine if we had grown up and just learned how to just take care of ourselves, move to feel good, eat to feel good.
Eat till you're full instead of finish everything that's on your plate. You know, you shut off that ability in you to just go like, you know, well, you took it, you got to eat it. Somebody's starving, and you know.
Oh God, the guilt and shame about someone's got it
There's
worse.
somebody out there starving, you know, they'd be appreciative, you know, and you're going, yeah, but.
Yeah, it was that real lack mentality, right? That
Yes.
kind of and brought in those. And it's funny how as humans, we often aren't mindful enough to realize the implications of the words that we use, right? Or the phrases that we fall into. And like, you know, we talk a lot even in the Joy Project community or in this podcast about like falling into that autopilot, right? It's good to catch ourselves with those things that we're saying. So what I love again about these books and about your contribution is that, you know, you're able to catch yourself in those things and call them out. And be like, this actually isn't right. You know, I don't believe this. You know, there was a time that I believed this. I don't believe this anymore. Right. You're kind of taking back the power in that.
Yeah.
How did it feel to write that chapter in that book?
You know what? It was really cathartic. Like it was just like, you know, helped release some things, you know, and I was going through a bit of a growth period and learning a little bit about, you know, how I am the way I am or why I am the way I am. And, you know, obviously like everybody, it stems back to childhood and, you know, parenting, which again, parents, they taught us and nurtured us the way they knew how to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and they did come from a lack.
They totally did.
Right?
Yeah.
Mine
the world is so
did.
different.
They came from a lack and, you know, wars and food scarcity and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So of course they're going to bring that forward.
Yeah.
Into
It's so
us,
true.
Right?
Yeah, it's so true. And again, just not having that foresight, not being able to know that like how we live in that place of fear.
Yes.
Right. Or that place of lack actually holds us back in the big picture. Right.
Yeah.
But they just didn't have that perspective then.
No.
Yeah.
They were just too busy surviving, truly.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often, you know, reflect on and even speak to the fact that like, you know, our parents, like you say, our parents did the best that they could with what they knew to do, right? And it's sort of our job as adults to start to do some of the work to unravel from some of the impacts of that. They didn't know how they were going to impact us, right? And they didn't know that those things might be hurtful or like, you know, really impact us in a negative way. But it's up to us as adults to, instead of keep pointing backwards and saying, you did this to me, is instead point the finger toward us and say, what can I do? To help me show up better, help me show up as more of myself and like remove or replace some of these thoughts or beliefs that I have that, and it's not easy to do, but.
Yeah. And you've got to, I think you have to have an understanding of where it comes from. That's fine. You're understanding where it comes from, but it's not a blame situation, right? It's okay. That's what that's about. Okay. Now what?
We're so complex.
Yeah.
Like really humans are complex. And it's like all of the, you know, imprints that different experiences have on us in our lives, right? So like from our parents, from our culture, from the experiences that we've had, the relationships we've been in, like all of the things, they imprint on us, and all of us have a different sort of reaction to those imprints. So again, this is what I love about these like co-author type books, is you're not even just hearing from one person who has a story. You're hearing, and what I love about podcasting is that you're able to share and celebrate all of these other stories that, you know, are so different. And, you know, it's like what we talked about at the Bloom event, and what we talk about all the time is like, you know, we may not have the same experiences, but we can often find connection in what we have experienced through other people's stories.
Yeah, definitely. Like I know when I read my fellow co-authors' chapters, in just about every one of them, I could see a little bit, you know, of my own experience in it. All entirely different stories, you know, but there's still, you know, I've thought that, or I've felt that, or I've seen that, or, you know.
Yeah. And especially as women, right? Like there's so many things that have played into what we think of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a whole other can of worms to open up. So maybe we don't go entirely down that road today, but there have been so many different things that have impacted us as women, which I think that's why there's that strong connection between us.
Yes.
and that human connection, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that book, and then you also mentioned you're a co-author in a book that's coming out.
The next one is called Honest as a Mother, and it's volume 3 of the series of 3. And I think it's funny, I think both Andrea and Amanda started their book journeys with co-authors at the same time, entirely different subjects, because Honest as a Mother is coming out around the same time as Body Bliss 3 is coming out. So it's just funny how that works. And I know I had heard about hers a couple of times, and I just thought I wasn't ready to write that story. And then for whatever reason, when I saw the call go out for the third one, I thought, yeah, now's the time. I'm going to tell the story, which is good because I think this is the last volume.
Funny how they both had 3 volumes.
Fate was on my side there because it is a more difficult story to tell. Some might want, like talking about your body is pretty vulnerable and pretty hard to talk about too.
Yeah.
But my motherhood journey is harder. There were things that happened that, he's, like I said, he's got special needs. So, when you're calling your family, when he's just born, that they need to come because he may die.
What a way to start.
Yeah.
So much stress.
Yeah.
And worry.
He's just a little wee, he's 5 days old, Yeah.
That's tough, Jen.
Yeah. So.
I feel that. And to start your journey as parenthood there, I can only imagine, maybe you can speak to it, but our children are pretty helpless, right? When they're little. And when you start out that way, every little thing that would happen, you would probably be fearful that it was going back to how you started, right? Do you want to speak to a little piece of that journey?
Yeah. And part of it, again, to make it worse, was I didn't have great reaction from my parents. I was alone right from the start. The dad, pieced out, which was good for us anyways, as far as I'm concerned. But he was gone as soon as I told him I was pregnant, and he ordered me to have an abortion. Yeah. And I said, sure, okay, but I'm done with you. And knowing full well I was not going to do that. I was just going to be done with him. I thought, I gave you the chance. You don't want it. We're good.
Yep.
We're good without you. I don't owe you anything. We're fine. But my parents were not happy. And I wasn't 19. I was 29.
Interesting.
I'd lived on my own my whole life. Not my whole life, but I've been on my own since I was 19.
What was the part that you felt they were the most unhappy with, or what did they convey was...
I think it was very much, what will people think of us?
Oh, interesting. Because you're
unwed. I'm unwed.
Yeah.
He's of mixed race. Not that, I do not consider, would have ever thought of my parents as being racist in any way, but it's again, small town Ontario, right? Mm-hmm. Small town Ontario, people thinking, oh my, what do people think? Oh my gosh, what are we going to tell people? Whatever. And yeah, they did not react really well.
So you probably felt out of the gates you didn't have a whole lot of support.
I did not have, I've written it in the book, so I might as well say it here. My dad called me after a weekend that I'd told them. They called me, told me they'd arranged with their doctor for me to have an abortion.
Jen.
I said, if I was going to do that, I'd have never told you. You'd have never known.
Yeah.
So I was hysterical, and I didn't talk to them for most of the weekend. And finally I spoke to them on the Sunday night, and my dad was like, you're going to start. Who do you think is going to help you? You'll probably starve to death. Nobody's going to help you. So I went, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That just, let's just take a minute here for a second. That, first of all, that hurts my heart to hear that. And how like, how did you feel in that moment?
Just, utterly destroyed. Like, because I knew they wouldn't be pleased,
Yeah.
but I never expected that they would be so opposed to it. And, yeah. So most of my pregnancy, I don't know that I really said a whole lot to my dad most of my pregnancy. And, it was very tough. And luckily at that time I lived in Toronto. So I only went home anyways on long weekends. I didn't drive. So I only went home on long weekends just because it was expensive and annoying to take the train.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't see them often. But how they felt when they got the phone call to come see their grandson, because he might die. And they showed up the next day. They were there.
I'm glad they came.
Yeah. How they felt about it, I don't know, because we didn't talk about things.
Well, I think
we don't talk about things in my family.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably relating to that though as they're listening, right? Because we weren't taught to talk about things.
No.
Most of it was like lift up that rug and push it under there and never speak of it again kind of situations, right?
Exactly. So, how they felt, I don't know. But yeah, they were there and,
Did you get their support beyond that time? Like,
things started to change after that. They would look, we were welcome in the house, and we would go there more often. I moved to Kitchener because he'd had, they don't know exactly why they feel that he had a lack of oxygen at some point. They don't know whether it was during birth or when I was carrying him or whatever. And he was just having seizures, one after the other, and they were silent, so couldn't tell.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know. He could have been having them for 5 days. I don't really know. All I know is when we were readmitted back into the hospital because I was having problems getting him to feed, and he'd lost a little too much weight. They don't want them to lose any more than whatever. And then they were running all kinds of tests on him, spinal tap and blood work and all this kind of stuff. And finally they put him on an oxygen mat. And that's when they realized his oxygen level was rising and falling just constantly. It was up, it was down, it was up, it was down. And he was seizing.
Wow.
All the time. Yeah, so they gave him meds, 3 different kinds of meds to get the seizures to stop. My sister and her husband and my little 2-year-old nephew had come down that day, so they were with me when this was happening, and that was good. They said, we need to call in. I can't even remember the technology, but it was somebody, in order to get the intubate, they had to intubate him if they were going to move him to sick kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to call some technician. I can't remember the name of it now off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's okay.
But, and if that happened, then he was going to sick kids. And we'd just gone down to the cafeteria to have something to eat, and I heard them call the technician to the NICU, and I'm going, he's going to sick kids. So down to sick kids he went. He spent a week down there. They got the seizures stopped, and like they said, they don't know why. He's got damage in his brain, in the occipital region, which is why his eyesight is impaired.
Yeah.
But I was told at 9 days old he'd never walk and be completely blind.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how old is he now?
He's 26 and he walks all over. Walks, runs, he can ride a bike. He skis cross country.
He lifts weights. Doesn't he also do that?
Yeah.
And like I've seen him when you've been in our calls, and he seems so sweet. Like he comes up and gives you a hug and like a kiss on the cheek. Yeah. Like his energy to me feels like he is just love.
Yeah. We've actually been, where the heck, it was not a full psychic sort of fair, but one of those holistic things, and there were people there that could read energy and stuff, and we had a woman stop us going, I love his energy.
I love that.
he just gives off such a good energy.
Oh my
You know?
goodness. Like, oh, like to start so rough out
Yeah.
in, becoming a new mom, right? And also like not having the support of your family at the time,
Yeah.
really probably feeling pretty abandoned at that
Yeah.
time, right? And probably questioning a lot of things, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
And then to go through that kind of a challenge, like, but then to see the human he is today, and not to, like, I don't want to skip from, the time he was born until now that he's 26, but it's like, I hear from you and I feel from you the beauty that he has brought to the world and to your life. And, you probably can't imagine not having him here.
No, not at all. No. And I think that he did give that to my parents, I think, as as well. And I think there was probably deep regret for the rest of their lives, I think.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, wow. It's like, sometimes it's like you didn't even think that they were, racist, or that was never a common conversation in your household. But it is interesting sometimes how those ideas that are so trapped underneath come out in points of, struggle or stress or strain, right? It's like we kind of really get to see some of those things pop up. And
and it could have even just been like the knowledge that other people are, and that would be a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It might not be their viewpoint at all, but the knowledge that
that's fair.
People are.
Yeah, because it is still, we're living in the year 2024.
Oh yeah.
And there is still not equality around the table. And so I can only imagine how 26 years ago that also was, right? Like maybe I wasn't as tapped into it at that stage of my life, but certainly can appreciate, like, we haven't really come that far.
No.
In a lot of ways, right?
And it was still, even 26 years ago, relatively, not relatively rare, but depending on where you lived, it wasn't seen that often, right? And now but I have had people say, oh, so when did you get him? When I conceived him.
People can be so ignorant.
Wow.
Yeah.
First off,
can we ask more curious questions, please?
I would never ask that sort of question of someone.
No.
Like, ever, but okay, right?
Wow.
And I know, whatever. I realize he doesn't look like me, so that's fine. Fair enough,
yeah.
Right? And the adoption is very common from other countries, so fair enough. But I'm just kind of going.
People make so many quick assumptions.
Me?
In my belly.
In my belly, from the minute I could, from conception. That's when I got him. I don't know the exact date. I'm sorry.
Did you ever have like fun with some of those responses?
Yeah,
like I might have been like, from my uterus.
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
man. Yeah.
And I'm not going to take offense to the question. I am going to wonder, like, what?
Yeah.
Who asks that?
Where does that? Well, again, it's like that whole, I get people say things that they don't even realize that they're saying. So like our consciousness of sometimes what we think or they're not even thinking it. It's just in there. Yeah. And then it comes out. It's like, we need to pay better attention.
Yeah.
Because
sometimes
those types of questions are,
sometimes a filter is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe ask yourself, should I ask that question?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So like, I can only imagine too, like, so like starting out being a new mom with all of this trauma, really, on you, that would have been, of course, difficult on him, but also on you.
Yeah.
So, like, how did you find yourself working through some of those things? Like, or did you for a long time?
I don't suppose I did for a long time. My whole life for, the first several years was just getting him to where he could be, because it was a lot of work. There were a lot of therapies and, we had to, most kids, you sort of teach them to do all those milestones, but like I really had to teach him. There were things that we had to do to teach him how to sit and walk and stand, and where a lot of that does come naturally when a kid's ready to do it.
Yeah.
And for him, there was a lot of work You know, we spent a lot of time, you know, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy up at Kids Ability. He had workers with infant development program. They would come into the house when he was just little and start learning things, even just rolling onto his belly or getting pushing up and all of that stuff. It all had to be taught, right? Encouraged more. And you know, for the first little while, he's got very mild cerebral palsy. You can't really even tell. If you were to pull his right arm, it'll snap right back. But when he was a baby, it was fisted and right up close to him for the first few years. And it wasn't until like he started to learn how to use that arm that it loosened up a little bit or whatever. And even now, there are times when I have to go, you have two hands. Like, you can use both hands to carry that, because he's just more inclined to use his one hand.
Right.
It's like he didn't fully make the connection or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow. And I think too, like, you know, I mean, I'm also a single mom, but had a child who doesn't have similar struggles that you've had with your son. And, it was so emotionally laborious and exhausting to just be a new mom. So then to have all of the additional things on top of that, like, were there support systems in place? Like, I know that there are a lot of challenges in the support system, but
yeah, I mean, we were, crazy as it sounds, I consider us lucky that he had the issues he had when he first started out, because we got services for him right away. We didn't, there was no waiting, you know, it just happened quickly for us, and it doesn't happen that way for many people. You've got to prove there's something wrong, right, before you start to get services. So for him, we knew there was problems, and that was that. So lots and lots and lots of supports and whatnot for him. For me, no. For me, it was just, I just got to go through, like, he's more important. I got to get him where he's got to go. And I didn't really give myself a whole lot of thought or energy or whatever, right? Like, you know, my sister was here in town. I have a cousin I'm close to, you know, and that was about it. Like, there were no friendships. I didn't have time for friendships. I didn't feel I had anything I could offer someone because I had to give everything to him.
Yeah. So really probably like, I mean, parenting alone is a very lonely time, but probably almost even more so because you were so busy, you know, I was going to say sort of helping him survive, which to one part is probably partially true, but just that much more of that encouragement and that emotional energy that would have to go to teaching him over and above what you would be doing normally, with it. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, I probably didn't really give myself a whole lot of thought until, probably till he was 21 when he graduated from school, really.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, okay, we got through that.
You know? Yeah. Well, and even like, I know that, like in the community, do you mind if I say that? Because so Jenn is in my Joy Project community.
Yeah, I should have said it myself. I didn't know.
That's okay. And, you know, I know we've had like different conversations about, you know, coming into a place where you can put more time into you, right?
Yeah.
And that, like, because you're so much more responsible for your child when they have special needs. And like, you know, most of us, like my 16-year-old comes home, like, you just watched him, he made himself a snack. Yeah. He takes care of him. I don't have to do that. Whereas like you would probably still have had to help all along the way. And, you know, it really prevents them from being able to be independent and doing a lot of things on their own, which I would understand. That's why it was hard for you, or you weren't even in your own peripheral. It was like laser focus on this kid who I'm the only one here to support him, and he needs all of me. Yeah. And then maybe just recently, you know, as he's gotten more into his adulthood, and learned maybe some more independence.
Yeah, he's got some independence. Like he can be left alone, you know, for a few hours. I would never ever do it overnight.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of how far I'll drive, because there's a worrier in me as well, going, well, what if something happened to me? Would he know what to do? What if I can't get home? What if the car breaks? Right? Like all of those, you know, what if scenarios that go through my head that I'm trying to get over and go, you've got people. You do have people now you could call.
Well, and it's like, I can only imagine, because those have always been the thoughts you've had to have.
Yeah.
Right? It's like most people can't put themselves in your shoes because they can't imagine, having to think of all those extra things.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like every day for you is thinking about all those extra things. But what's interesting is you mentioned, like, you have support. So, but going from, like, I just want to like say it out loud, because I mean, it's for so many of us, is like, it's so hard to give back to ourselves, but especially as you're somebody who hasn't really had that opportunity to then be like, to work that muscle of like, hey, cousin Joanne, I don't know your cousin's name.
That is
like,
her name.
Oh, stop it. Stop it. It absolutely is. Holy shit. You saw that? You heard that?
It is.
Oh my God.
My bestest cousin friend, I call her. Yeah, she's my bestest cousin friend.
My
yeah,
God,
Joanne.
that was like trippy. That was like a psychic moment.
It was.
Maybe it's the crystals I'm wearing.
Maybe.
Ooh, that was
Okay.
hilarious.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Wow, that's a moment. Well, you'll have
Something
to tell her.
happened. I don't know. Yeah.
You'll have to tell her about
I
that.
will.
Oh my God, that's so funny. But like, to be able to reach out to her and ask for that help, right? It's like hard enough for us to receive, right? Because we're not taught to receive. You haven't been in a place to like, be in a place of being able to accept, because there wasn't really a whole lot there for you to pull from.
Yeah.
And you were kind of taught and told,
Well, it's always been in the back of my head. Nobody's going to help you. Okay, well, then I'm just going to do for me. That's fine. And I'm a stubborn little, bitch sometimes. Sometimes to my detriment. And when I look back now, I'm going, some of that stubbornness was to my detriment because I wasn't going to ask for help. I was told I wasn't going to get it. I'm not asking for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also like, I just want to call it, because it's like self-protection.
Yeah.
It's like, there is that is what that you experience. I'm not a psychiatrist or whatever, but it's like that's trauma. And so our response often to trauma is to close off, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't need anybody. I don't need your help. I can do it myself. Yeah. And like, cause I didn't, I mean, my circumstances are very different, but I didn't realize that about me until much later. Mm-hmm. So how did that shift for you?
I think it started like Jordan, he graduated from school at 21 in 2019. Mm-hmm. And then COVID came, right? He was just at home by himself, and I was good with that. Like, he can be at home while I'm at work. My workplace is luckily very close to my home, which makes it easier. I'm not traveling an hour to go to work, because I don't know what I would have had to do then. I'd have figured something out, but I don't know what. So, and I was just sort of letting him get used to not having the routine of school. And then I thought, we'll explore things to do with him to occupy his time, and give him a sense of purpose as well. But I'm going to give him a little bit of time. And then COVID came, and then everything got shut down. And then, so I was glad I hadn't started him in a program that he'd gotten used to. He was used to being at home, and we had a gym we went to, and we went there like 6 days a week, because that's what I was doing then. And he was working out there too, and it was nice. It was a great environment. They supported him. I could get my workout while he could just hang out, or he could do his workout. A lot of the members would help him out. Like, it was a great environment at that time. And then
you were like, I don't want to cut you off, but I'm cutting you off to say that, like, you kind of had started taking better care of you and giving energy into you
for me.
And then the pandemic happened.
And then just isolation, right? And I didn't even really, because he's very matter of fact, so he just sort of seems to handle things, right? So I didn't really think about or realize just what the impact was of that isolation until the first time we went to see people socially distanced outside, and his energy level and his hyperness was just over the top. I hadn't seen him like that since he was like a little kid. And I'm going, he's just had me. and I've just had him.
Yeah.
That got hard.
Yeah.
It got hard to just have, we were on top of each other 24/7. I wasn't leaving to go to work. I was working from home. He had nothing, no outlet to go to, nothing like that. And it was hard.
Yeah, and I think about like his sensory will be almost, this is how I'm sort of understanding it, is like he'll be oversensitive to certain things and maybe get overexcited, right? Like, so it's an exaggeration from what we might feel.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like his excitement was probably similar to how most of us felt,
Yes.
right? It's just that he is like in an adult body, but still very childlike.
Exactly.
And, most of us, our inner child is screaming to come out, right? This is, I'm big on this, right? It's like where a lot of our stuff is with our inner child.
Yeah.
And so like he was expressing what a lot of us were feeling.
He was just acting exactly how he felt.
Yeah.
Right. Where we've been taught to
suppress ourselves.
Right.
Yes.
So it's just like, oh, okay. And at that point I went, well, we're not fully locking ourselves down ever again. Like, that's not happening. Right. And then things sort of opened up and they started doing workouts out in the park and things like that. And then the gym, they had moved from their one location to a new one and they were able to open up again. And then everything got shut down. Right. But our gym led the way with legislation to say that if it was needed, people with disabilities of any kind, if it was needed, that the gyms could be open. They led that movement. So all you needed was a note to say, why you needed to work.
Isn't it crazy that we even had to go through that in the first place?
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But like, that's nuts. But I'm so glad. So glad that happened.
Yeah. So luckily we were when everything else was shut down. Sorry.
That's okay.
When everything else was shut down, we were able to keep working out.
Oh, I'm so glad for that.
Yeah. So, and with this, with our little fit family that we had, so I could do my thing, he could do his thing. The members adored him, right?
Yeah.
Because he is love and light, like.
Yeah, he is. Right? I haven't met him in person yet, but I feel that
he's just,
very much.
So people love him, right? It doesn't, and he's very, generous. If he doesn't hug you, then there must be something.
Something in his energy is like, you're off.
Because there's very few people. I mean, maybe not the very first time he meets somebody. He's got to know that it's okay and it's okay with me or whatever. That somebody that I know. He doesn't hug perfect strangers, which is good.
That's good.
But
that would be a whole other level of stress.
That's a whole other problem we'd have to deal with. But once he knows, okay, you're an okay person, all right, and you can't get away from the hugs. So
yeah.
So luckily we had all of that. But in the meantime, there were some things going on in the background of that gym that I had friendships with people that were falling apart. So it was difficult for me to be going there. For me, but I knew he had to be there. So
again, you were like sacrificing,
right? Sacrificing myself and going, oh God, like this is so, yeah. Right. And the friendships that were, two of the friendships that were part of that gym, completely fell apart. And then the gym closed.
Damn.
Shut their doors because it was just too hard.
Well, geez. I mean, I understand.
Who didn't?
I mean, I closed my business too because it was
just too hard to stay afloat.
And recover from
it.
Yeah, like I know a lot of business owners are in the same place that I was, where like we took out big loans, and then all of a sudden it's like shit. Like it got ate up so fast because you're recovering, and it's like how long is it going to take me to rebuild this thing? Yeah. Well, anyways, we don't have to go on that topic, but I'm glad that ended up being something that you had as an outlet. But it also sounds like there was that piece of stress in there for you as well. So
but it also set me down the journey where I'm going, all right, like I need to figure myself out here. I need to figure myself out and find something that makes me happy. So find my joy, find my whatever. right?
Yeah.
So I'm grateful now, as difficult as it was, I'm grateful now for those friendships falling apart because they weren't serving me anymore. Part of the difficulty was that Jordan was so enmeshed with them too. He was, they were his
Yes.
friends or whatever, however you want to phrase
Well,
it.
like family, basically.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
And I was going to have to take that away from him. And luckily they moved out of the country, so it was very easy. It made it easy.
Yeah.
Made it very final.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to, be the one to say we're done here.
Yeah.
Right? So, but yeah, I found out a lot about myself, I think, and I'm grateful for all of that happened. I mean, I wasn't at the time, but now I am, right? The friends, they weren't serving me anymore. They weren't good relationships anymore for me, and maybe not for them either. I can't speak to what they needed or didn't need.
There goes the clip-on microphone.
Another distraction.
Seriously, there's a fun energy in here today. It's like all the technology is like, haha, Christine, you thought you got it figured out, but we're going to show you that you don't.
Yeah.
Except you did guess it was cousin Joanne.
Yeah, exactly. We had a psychic moment. Technology, not our friend. Psychic, right there.
So fun. Well, and I would love, and maybe, I don't know if you can articulate this, but I'll ask and do what you want with this question is like, you've been on this journey of, self-reflection and finding love in yourself and, rebuilding yourself and giving yourself opportunity to tap into what brings you joy. And so, if anyone's listening right now and they're having a hard time and they know that they want to make some shifts and like, maybe it feels like everything's falling apart around them. Cause I'm sure there were many times that it felt like that,
I thought
right?
I was losing my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I thought I was honestly, I thought I was going crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could, articulate what are some of the steps that you took? I know it doesn't all happen at once, right? Because I think that's really important for people to know that we kind of expect change to happen right away once we make a decision and it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah.
But what were maybe some of the steps or things that you tried that helped you?
I think some of the first things I started doing was just reading, finding books to read. One of the first ones I read was I Thought It Was Just Me, But It Isn't by Brene Brown. And in that one, that's the one I'm pretty sure that has the quote about shame. Like, shame can't live, I don't know it exactly, but shame can't exist if you speak it out loud, basically.
Yes.
Right? And that one, that really struck me. Because I'm going, many of us are walking around with a lot of shame.
We sure are.
That we don't know why or where, or maybe we do know why, or, little of both. But yeah, started reading stuff. I read something related to, I can't remember the name of the title now, but about childhood emotional neglect. And that is not to say that your parents, again, we're not saying that parents were terrible people, but it helps you understand where they came from.
Of course.
And help you see what it was and go, okay, because you can't change if you don't understand it either. Yeah. Right? So it's not about blaming, it's about understanding where it came from and what do we do next. And then the other thing that got me out of it was doing that journaling. Like, I started journaling and having that page of positive affirmations and writing down something I liked about myself and something that I was grateful for, to just remember that, you've got good qualities and you've had good things happen and whatever.
Helping you look for the good instead of focusing on, which our brains tend to do, right? Focus on what's wrong or what's bad or what's not working for us. Exactly. Instead, like when we're focusing in gratitude, And I know that may sound really hokey or like there's just no way, but I'm telling, like, for me, but within a week of starting to do those things, it really did shift. It really did start shifting things for me. Yeah. It's like, it's like when you eat a lot of junk food, you feel like junk. But then when you put in really good, healthy, whole foods, you feel good. Yeah. And it's kind of like that. When we keep listening to us recreate the junk in our mind, and we're not emptying it out, right? Like
Yeah.
we're not saying the things out loud. We're not emptying out the shame. We're not releasing those things.
Yeah.
And instead, if we, like that's it, that in itself it's just going to keep that ball rolling. Whereas if we instead put in good thoughts, like the good food, it's going to start to shift gears because it starts in our mind.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
That's really beautiful. And like, how do you feel today? Like, where are you today?
Yeah. You know what? Again, it ebbs and flows, right? So
Yeah.
you're never going to fix the problem 100%. Problem's not even the right way to say it, right? It's a journey, much like body bliss is a journey to body acceptance. The whole thing is a journey.
Yeah.
There's you're never going to reach the destination necessarily. There's always just going to be, you're always learning new things, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. You can hit that valley, and I just start doing the same things again, right? Or I'll pick up my journal from before and reread what I wrote so that I can remember, like, these are the good things. These are the, I'm grateful for this. And I'm just bringing yourself back to that gratitude when you need it.
Well, because it really is easy to fall off the tracks.
It is.
And, it's like I often refer to personal development or growth as like a dance, right? It's like you take a couple steps forward and you take a couple steps back.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Yeah.
Right. And when we're willing to see what is good, and we keep practicing the things for us that feel good, or like lean into more of what feels right for us, then we start to dance more forward than backward, right? We can still dance backward. There's still steps that go back.
There's still going to be moments, and there's still going to be something that you don't even expect that might trigger something that you go, thought I dealt with that one, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't know what it is, but the more you put into place the things that work for you to help you turn it around, then, and you practice those. Right?
Yeah.
Practice them all the time.
Yeah. Practice is big.
And putting yourself in rooms with people that are like-minded, because that helps you keep it in the forefront. Like it's easy if you're all by yourself to forget.
Yeah.
Right?
It's interesting. I heard someone say this out loud and I was like, oh, that's the difference. Because I often find myself saying like-hearted instead of like-minded. And I heard someone say, and just take this as you will, that like-minded means we have the similar opinions. Like-hearted means that we share a connection, that we're in search of more, and that we're not accepting where we have been.
Yes.
We're moving, right? So it's like when we're heart-centered, heart-led, because I really believe that that's where you mean. And I know sometimes it's just some people are like, oh, it's just words, it doesn't matter. But there is that difference there. Yep. It's like-minded, I could find myself in a room with all the same people that have the same political opinions as I do. Yeah, and now we're like-minded, sure, because we believe the same thing. Yeah. But if, really, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to human connection. Yes. And what you have done for yourself is taken some really, really difficult things, Jen. Like, I just want to say how proud I am of you for what you have come through and how you have learned so much in the world that you have led, in the life that you have led, and raised this beautiful son, who is literally joy, right? And I'm sure it didn't always feel like joy for you, right? No. Like that would be a struggle bus, right? Yeah. But really that you knew there was always something in you that knew that something could be more for you, could be better for you. Yeah. And you kept leaning into that, and you continue to do that today. And like sourcing out, and I don't know if you would add this to your, things to do, but it's like, yes, being in rooms and sourcing out people that are of support. Yeah. Right. It's like, this is one thing we talk about all the time in the Joy Project community is like, being in spaces and surrounded by people who are encouraging you and are cheerleading you. Yeah. And we're all doing the work, right? We're all at different places and doing the work. We're all doing different things. But to be in a space that, doesn't live in shame, it doesn't live in guilt, and instead looks forward, finding those people in your life. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And finding those ways to shut down that little voice that's in your head that's going, this, you're not good enough for this, or you're not whatever it is your little voice says, right? Like, this isn't for you for whatever reason, right?
It's lying.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Who says?
Yeah. It's like our minds are, they try to keep us safe. And the only reason that we fear things is because we haven't yet done them.
Yeah.
We have no experience. We don't know what it's going to look like. And we're uncertain about what that, but the beauty behind that, when we move and past that fear, that place our head tells us that we can't, and we show ourselves that we're far more capable of things, and that surprise is actually good, often teaches us things, allows us to grow and be better humans, right? Yeah. So, Jenn, it has been so incredible to sit here and chat with you. And also, like, viewers, you don't know this unless you're maybe watching this little video that I've just held my new bracelet up to the camera, but Jenn brought me a pink opal bracelet, a beaded bracelet. First of all, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
But also I've learned today is grounding, and I love pink. Yes. And it's one of course, Jenn's creations, and I love it so very much. So thank you for my gift. Really, the gift for me was this conversation, but this was a nice little bonus. So thank you for that. Is there any final words that you want to leave before we wrap this up?
I don't think so. I think that, sometimes you just got to find what works for you, and don't be afraid to try different things. Write it down. If writing isn't your thing, maybe you need to voice note everything, right? To speak it. For me, I was good writing stuff down. That helped me release some of the shame. Maybe you're not a writer and you don't want to. Maybe it's a voice note. Maybe it's a painting. Maybe you need to draw. Maybe you need to dance around in circles. Maybe you need to go outside and shout at the world. Whatever it is that helps you release some of that crap you're carrying around. Right?
Yeah, that's a great last thought. Thank you for that. It's very important for us to release this. Otherwise, that energy sits in our bodies and different things.
Into something.
It does. Like, I actually believe that that's what's connected to our health and how we get sick, and because we don't know how in our society to release the stuff. We're not taught this, right? This isn't nurtured in us, and it's time that we learn how to do this, because it will work for us if we learn how to nurture it.
Exactly.
So thank you so much for coming and chatting with
You're
me.
welcome.
It was an honor to have you here. And for anybody who's listening, no matter where you've been or what you've done or what your experience has been, and no matter how horrible it has felt in your life at times, or how abandoned you may have felt, or, that you had no support by anybody around you, that there are your people out there, and there is a way for you. You just need to do things differently sometimes to find it. And we're all made for more. Jenn is living proof of that, right? And so is your son.
Yeah.
And so just food for thought. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode. I'd like to invite you to hit the follow button on this podcast so you'll be notified when the next one drops. And if you liked this episode, please leave a review, as it will help others to find this message. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at It's Me, Christine D. Or if you'd like to connect about being a guest on the show, ask me about group or one-on-one joy and mindset coaching, learn more about the Joy Project community, or consider hiring me for your next speaking engagement, please visit itsmechristined.ca. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.